Good evening. I would like to call the Maplewood Planning Commission to order on Tuesday, February 15th. Roll call.
Lou Yang present.
Cheryl Sokolsky present.
Paul Arbuckle present. Are we missing quite a few tonight?
Chair and Commission, we are missing Commissioners Dom, Desai, and Eads, but you do have 4 members for a quorum tonight.
Okay. Approval of the agenda. Any corrections or additions?
Chair and Commission, staff does not have any amendments to the agenda as presented.
Okay, we need a motion on that.
Motion to approve agenda as presented.
There's been a motion by Cheryl, second by
Lou.
Second by Lou. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hearing all ayes. Approval of the minutes. Any corrections or additions?
Chair and Commission, staff does not have any amendments to the minutes as presented.
Need a motion?
Motion to approve minutes as presented.
There's been a motion by Cheryl, second by
Lou.
Second by Lou. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. One abstention for me. I was not present. Public hearing number E, conditional use permit resolution, Superior Landscape and Irrigation at 2714 and 2730 Highwood Avenue. Staff?
Good evening, Chair and members of the Commission. So tonight we'll be discussing Superior Landscape and Irrigation. They are proposing to locate their landscaping company on an existing commercial site here in Maplewood. They currently operate out of South St. Paul and looking to move their operations here to Maplewood. The site is where the business will be operated is on 2 parcels actually, 2714 and 2730 Highwood Avenue. This is on the corner of Century and Highwood, just north west of 494. The site is 2.7 acres and it was formerly Carver Auto Body, an auto body repair shop. They're requesting approval tonight for a conditional use permit in order to operate on site. Okay, so the current controls of the property from a land use standpoint, our future land use plan guides the parcels for commercial development, and our zoning code has the properties zoned in the business commercial zoning district. The comprehensive plan guides the property for general retail, service, and office uses, and it does also reference light industrial uses. The proposed use meets the intent of the comp plan. The proposed use is permitted in the business commercial zoning district. The company employs approximately 30 employees. They specialize in design and installation of landscaping, pools, irrigation, and outdoor lighting. So again, a conditional use permit is required. This is required for interior storage or warehouses and the exterior storage, display, sale, distribution of goods or materials. So both of these activities will be occurring on site. And so that's why we've required this conditional use permit. So I wanted to point out before we go on, the applicant is actually purchasing 3 parcels. So there's 2714 and 2730, which are the 2 easterly parcels that are zoned business commercial, and that will be used for the operation of the landscape company. There's a home, existing home right here, if you can see my computer mouse on this little square parcel, that they're also purchasing. All 3 parcels are being sold by the same seller and being purchased now by the landscaping company. So this parcel here is a residentially zoned, guided for low density residential. It'll continue to be used as a single family home. I think their intent is to rent it out to the existing owners. The company that used to operate here, Carver Auto Body, owned all of them and lived here. So just wanted to point that out for the next slide. We'll get into that here. So
Elizabeth, can I interrupt you for 1 second?
Go for it.
On the zoning map here, it actually shows that that's all farming there. Is that the green area? Is that, you said residential, but is that different than the farm? Or
yeah, chair and board or commission, excuse me, or just with the board. Let me clarify. So our farm zoning classification allows for and permits single family dwelling. It essentially follows all the same standards in our zoning code as our single family dwelling district. There are some differences in the sense that this zoning designation also allows other types of small scale agricultural uses. But essentially it's a single family home and that's permitted, and it follows all the single family guidance in our code, if that makes sense. Does that answer the question?
yes.
So again, moving on to this here, and the reason I wanted to point this out is because, like I mentioned, 2692 Highwood, which is that corner westerly property, will continue to be used as a single family residential home. The other two are commercially zoned, and those will be used for that the company's business operations and office spaces. When we first spoke with the applicant, they had indicated that the existing residential home, which is on 2714, it's the older home on the property in the middle, that they might use that as office space. They haven't purchased the property. They're in the process of purchasing it. In speaking with the applicant just today, not to confuse you guys, they said they might just still use it as a single family home. So it can be used for a residential home. It has been used. Right now, it's currently being used and rented out by the owners. They rent it out to somebody, and it's used as a single family home. So it can continue to be used that way. It would be a legal non-conforming use. If they decide to use it as office space, then they would need to have it inspected and comply with our building codes in any change of occupancy that would be related to that and bringing the building up to code. So there is a condition that was added addressing that if they do decide to use it as office space. So I wanted to clarify that because they may or may not at this point, it sounds like, but there is a condition just in case. So now moving on.
Question. Hello. Does the existing home has an address?
It does. So what I'm talking about is right here. You can't quite see it in this because there's a lot of trees surrounding there.
Oh.
But there's an older home right here at 2714, and it's been, I think,
I see.
my understanding is the owners of this property lived here at one time. They built a home here, a bigger home, and now they've been renting this out. They're selling all three properties.
Yeah, but what about the third property? It doesn't come with an address?
Oh, it's just shown on this drawing. I apologize. This was provided by the applicant. It's 2692 Highwood.
Oh, okay.
Yep. So if you look, this is 2692 right here, this square parcel on the west end.
Okay.
Yep. So there's no major exterior changes to the site or the existing structures. Essentially, they'll be storing landscaping materials. They'll have some vehicles associated with their business, and they're proposing to have 3 fuel tanks on site. They did indicate, obviously being a landscaping company, some future plans for landscaping improvements on the site. So with that, we'll move on to the staff review. We already touched on the change of use from residential to commercial. The engineering comments pertain to the outdoor storage of any items that they have on site and that they need to be contained and protected, in case there are storm events. And so they're requesting additional details as well on those fuel storage tanks. The fire department is also requesting additional information on the fuel tanks, and then also ensuring that the buildings comply with the fire code as required. So those conditions have been added to the resolution. The conditional use permit is being reviewed by the Planning Commission this evening. It's tentatively scheduled to go to the City Council on March 14th. We did send notice to the surrounding properties within 500 feet. We did not receive any comments here at the city regarding the proposed conditional use permit. With the conditions that are outlined in your report, staff is recommending approval of the conditional use permit for the landscaping company at 2714 and 2730 Highwood Avenue. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. And I do believe there's a few folks representing the application here as well.
Is the parking lot all curbed already? They don't have to do anything with that or anything?
To be honest, I'm not sure. That was not added in there.
Chair and Commission, the parking lot, there's no construction being proposed.
Okay.
So there's not going to be any physical requirements just for the CUP approval itself, unless there was something related to approving a CUP that would require that type of improvement. But if the applicant came back with other site modifications, then those current standards for curbing and pavement would be required at that time.
Okay. Are they going to be selling any of the supplies to the general public, like the rock and mulch and that, or is that just for their own use?
Chair and Commission, I guess that would be a good question for the applicant. I'm not quite sure if this would be a spot that would be open for people to come in, kind of like, your typical garden center or landscaping center. So whenever you would like to ask them that, I would request that you ask that question to them.
Okay.
I'm available. This is Sean Racine with Superior Landscape. If you want to ask questions now or wait till the end, either way, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thanks, Sean. Did anybody have any questions for the staff? Okay, Sean, then the question I had then about was, are you going to be selling any of the products to the general public, or is it just for your personal use?
They are just for our personal use. So this won't be something, as you might be familiar with, like down the road is Gertons, where you can go and actually purchase materials. The materials we keep on site are to be taken to our customers' homes to use for their projects.
Okay. What will you be doing about? I don't know for sure how dirty it is there. But keeping the street clean and that, is that you have some plan for that, or just what's your thoughts on that?
That's a great question. So one of the things that we're most excited about is majority of this property is already asphalted. We're coming from a facility that's about half asphalt, half gravel, as well as being surrounded by about 3 other businesses that have gravel. And we have 2 sweeping units that go on our equipment that keep our lot clean, just for road debris and things like that. Being that this is majority asphalt where everything's will be running around, we will be doing a very good job. We like to keep our equipment looking good. It's our image. So we'll be doing, you shouldn't see anything on the streets or anything like that from us. And if there was to be something, we have equipment to clean it up right away.
Okay, question. Considering the slope of this property over here, do you anticipate any runoff contamination to the sewer?
Yeah, another great question. So where you see the proposed existing landscape materials, kind of the largest square right in the center, that's where we're going to keep landscape block, some raw materials that will be in containment bins. Everything is going to be running to eventually some sort of collection area. We're actually a certified rain garden installer, so we're very knowledgeable in stopping contamination into the city's stormwater system. So everything will have a negative slope away from anywhere where it could run from. The parking lots, I think a lot of them drain towards kind of the highway.
Yeah.
Median area where the regular asphalt is, where the materials will be, that will be kept separate. So we have no problem submitting a plan once this moves to the actual layout of of where the materials will be. But yes, no, we don't want to I actually have another business that works with municipalities, and one of the things is fats, oils, and greases. So I'm very knowledgeable in keeping stormwater systems clean. So.
Is it the intent, if you do go with the plan that's showing that with the exterior landscape material storage there, are you going to demolish that house then?
Right now, the house we plan to keep it would be in between the house and then the building. There'll be some rows in there. We'll keep some leftover or a staged landscape block for upcoming projects and some pavers. But the house, as of now, we plan to keep. I think in the original, some of the conversations we've had with the city, obviously we know that we'd have to go get a permit for any kind of demolition or things like that to the home in the future if we decide to change it. But as of right now, we don't have any plans to get rid of it.
Okay. My kind of two biggest concerns there is, when you're driving up Highwood, you can see everything from the street. And so it's, number one is kind of security. And then number two, it's kind of, how do you block off that view of just all of the material stuff, right?
I think one of the plans we have is in front of the home, actually on the street side, is to add some more tree coverage along that side. You're going to see a large transformation over the next couple of years of this property. It's pretty dilapidated when it comes to the landscape side. The landscape is probably put back in the 70s. The property itself, the curb appeal will be enhancing very nicely, as it's the image of our business, as well as not showcasing where we keep, I'm going to just call it our dirty laundry. So keeping the grounds looking nice from the clients that drive by and the neighborhood homeowners and so on.
Hey, you're out.
Go ahead.
You're also going to be putting storage tanks for fuel, right? Isn't that what I remember reading, or is that another thing?
Oh, that's correct. So at our current shop, we house our storage, our tanks. Our staff fills up in the morning. If the trucks are under half filled at our facility, we have emergency shutoffs. We have containment structure so that if there was a spill, we've never had an issue with a spill. But if there was one, they're inside a containment area that would collect any spillage. It's a very low volume, a couple thousand gallons of fuel between we keep off-road fuel for like skid loaders and things like that, and then gas and diesel for the trucks and vehicles. So that would be positioned farther back off the road where you would not see that from the road, with or without the tree improvements.
Where exactly is that on the map here?
As of this time, I think it was just asked for. It will be somewhere between we don't even have the exact location yet, but I would say it's gonna be somewhere between the center building where it says service shop and then the two upper storage sheds. It'll be most likely on that in between those two there.
Oh, okay.
So is this considered to be a larger footprint from where you are coming from, or about the same?
For lot size?
Yes.
If you look at the actual footprint, it's slightly larger, similar. What intrigues us about this is our business was started right in Cottage Grove. I actually started in my garage in 2004. We're down in South St. Paul, have a nice facility down there, but we don't have enough space to house our equipment inside. And so what intrigued us about this location is the nice storage building, so we can keep more product actually inside versus outside. The second one is about a third of our business is actually right in the Maplewood, Woodbury area. So moving a little bit closer to the core of our clients is another kind of just a little blessing in disguise here for us that we're able to get closer to where our clients are for better customer service. So.
Okay. Cheryl, did you have any questions, Cheryl?
No, I don't have any questions on this one.
Okay.
I you know,
Go ahead,
I
Lou.
got to go back to the security thing where you are housing a lot of your equipment and materials and things like that. Right now, there isn't like a large fence or anything that contains the property. I'm guessing maybe down the road or something like that. You know, is that going to be something that you would throw in there? Because it obviously you got to protect some of your assets and things like that too. So.
It's a good question, and one that we've been talking about. We find that when things are stored behind more private areas, it's actually more prone for people to have more time to go, we call it shopping. And actually having a little bit more of open space keeps the honest. And so we're trying to figure out what the best means would be. And one of those things I think was just get in there and start to see what we're experiencing. You know, the landscape itself may be some of our barrier for getting in and out when it comes to actually like equipment and things like that. Possibly gates in the front. Being a neighborhood local landscape company, building fences around everything is actually kind of not in our forte. So we just don't know yet. And so I'm sorry I don't have an exact answer for you at this time. Whether or not the need of a fence around the property is going to be necessary or not.
Mm-hmm.
I do know that Carver's been around since I believe 50s or 60s with a lot of nice vehicles parked outside, and they've made it this long operating. So we hope to have similar luck to be able to.
It's a pretty good neighborhood.
But those were not EV vehicles.
Say that again.
Those were not EV vehicles.
Yeah, I know the neighborhood really well. We have some really good clients right up in that area. Again, it's a great location for us, and we do feel comfortable moving from South St. Paul down and kind of the more of the. It's a great area, but it's kind of in the industrial area. It allows for a lot more evening activity at night, and the little bit more of a quietness is going to be nice for us as well. So,
yeah, it's a nice facility there. Yes, definitely. What happened to the auto place? Did he retire, or what happened with that?
Yep, for what I call, and actually history is the original house was the founder, the father, and then his son who took over is in the newer home. And then they have since retired, and they auctioned off all the auto body equipment this summer and moving on to the next stage in life.
Nice.
Cool.
Yeah. It's fun to kind of have that growing up in between Cottage Grove and Hastings. It was kind of fun to learn more about the history of this property while we've been going through the process, and just actually seeing how much more property they owned at one time as they started to section things off. And they've just been around for so long. Actually, my father, who's the realtor, told a story of how him and his father, they grew up right on the east side of St. Paul. He used to take their cars down there when he was growing up to this facility. So it's kind of fun, just the stories that are coming up.
Yeah, it's been there as long as I've been alive.
How long we talking about?
Since I was born. So does anybody else have any questions? I don't see any more that I need. And this is a public hearing. So I guess we can open it up if there's anybody that wants to interject anything for a public hearing. Do we have anybody there, Mike, or Elizabeth, that's waiting to chime in? Or
I'm not sure, but hold on. I think how this works, if I remember correctly.
You'd see like phone numbers and things there.
Yeah, I mean, there's a handful of folks on here, but I think there's a lot of people here representing the landscape company, I believe.
Okay.
But I will just say, if there is anyone here that would like to speak, oh, there's Mike. If there's anyone here that would like to speak to this item, All you need to do is press *6 to unmute yourself. There's maybe one name that I'm not sure if they're related to the project, but I think everyone is related to this project.
Okay. Well, it could be for the next one too. Who knows?
Yeah, there's 2 Leslies. So.
Okay. Anybody else? Anybody want to chime in?
Again, press *6 to unmute yourself if you would like to participate in the public hearing.
Final and last call. Okay. I close the public hearing then. Somebody like to make a motion on this then?
I will make the motion. Motion to approve a conditional use permit resolution for a proposed landscaping company to operate at 2714 and 2730 Highwood Avenue.
I'll second.
With a motion by Lou, second by Cheryl. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Hearing no ayes, this passed. This is just our recommendation, and this will go before the city on March 14th, correct?
You got it. That is
Okay.
correct, Chair and Commission.
Okay. Well, thank you, Sean, and members of the Landscaping Superior. Look forward to seeing what you got to come there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a great evening.
Number E2, conditional use permit resolution, McCarran Water Treatment Plant Improvement Project, 1900 Rice Street North. Staff?
Yeah, thank you, Chair and Commission. So again, we're looking at a proposal by St. Paul Regional Water Services to construct significant improvements to its McCarran's water treatment plant, which, as the chair mentioned, is located at 1900 Rice Street North. You can see this red outline is the entire campus. And then the project area is mainly focused in this dashed yellow line that we'll be focusing on our discussion this evening. To move forward with the project, they do need approval of a conditional use permit amendment and design review. The CDRB reviewed the design review earlier this evening and recommended approval with some amendments that I'll walk through as I go through the presentation tonight. So the current future land use guide for the property is public institutional. Again, that's guided by the 2040 comprehensive plan, which again guides the property for public uses. That's what's occurring now and will occur moving forward. The zoning is actually farm residential. I know that came up in the last item. And the zoning is inconsequential as public uses and utilities are permitted within any zoning district with that approved conditional use permit. So again, that's what you're looking at tonight. It's an amendment of existing conditional use permit that's approved for the site. This is another image giving you an indication of the project area. So this is where, this doesn't include grading and other impacts to the site, but where the building massing will largely occur, and then the stormwater pond facility both to the north and east of the site. So a significant amount of demolition work and removal of a large amount of trees would occur on approximately 23 acres of the main campus site to facilitate the project. And then there's a time frame that's significant here that we should be considering as with approval of the conditional use permit, as the project is scheduled to start next month and last through the middle of 2026. The site layout is largely dictated by existing conditions. As you reviewed the plans, you will see what's being demolished is largely being replaced with existing or larger facilities in its current place. So the overall layout of the site will not dramatically change, but again, it's expanding. But with that said, the applicant worked extensively with city staff to understand what those setbacks were as dictated by city code. And all new facilities, building wise and drive lane wise, everything's meeting setback requirements. There is a temporary road that is being proposed that would come off Roseland avenue that would extend north through the site. And if you look through the staff report and then ultimately the engineering review, it is recommended that that access road be shifted to the west as far as possible to mitigate impacts to the residential neighbors to the east. There's two new structures that are being constructed or have been designed to be consistent with other buildings on the campus. The structures are here focused on the east side of the site. Both structures are to be constructed with white and gray precast concrete panels, and again, consistent with the look of the water treatment plant campus. These two graphics on the right side indicate the staging of demolition. So, stage one are these blue areas to the north side here, and then the orange indicate the second phase of demolition. And then what we'll talk more and extensively about here tonight is the proposed tree removals. And that's where you see in this orange shade the areas of trees that are proposed to be removed. At the conclusion of the project, when all said is done, staff does have a belief that the neighborhood won't experience a significant change of operations and being next to a water plant as they do today. Now, what happens in between, there are considerations to be made, and that's where we focus on the two major areas of the CUP that we think from staff's level should be addressed. And the first one is the proposed removal of trees. And again, we're going to get into that. I have several slides to walk through that. And then the overall construction management. Staff's recommending that the applicant be required to submit a construction management plan that would be submitted to the Public Works Director for his approval. And this would manage the project for that 4.5, 5-year process. And these components were listed in your staff report, so I'm not going to read them to you, but it shows the complexity and the wide ranging of issues that need to be considered. And ultimately what it is we want to be able to set expectations for, both the city level and then the property owners and residents that live near the construction zone to have an understanding of what to expect with the project itself, and then who to contact with concerns or questions directly to the project. And then getting to the issue of trees, the applicant, with the plans that were submitted for your review tonight, they had proposed the removal of 384 significant trees, mostly located on, the east side of the site. There are a handful of trees that were proposed to be preserved, largely right on the property line itself. And so, the staff's review of this project, that really kind of focused our concern of the project overall is the focus of the amount of tree loss and screening loss that comes with that. So staff had initially recommended a 50-foot buffer be maintained from all residential property lines to the east. So I'm going to walk through 4 slides here that were submitted by the applicant, and they're a kind of a counter proposal to what staff's recommendation was to start with. And so the applicant is present here tonight and can definitely speak more directly to these slides, but I'm just going to provide an overview with what they are just laying out, and then we'll discuss further from there. So they've divided the residential shared property line area here in 3 areas, and they wanted to make sure it was understood what each area is needed for in terms of the project itself. So, project 1 is the closest to the facilities themselves in this yellow shaded area. And they say that that's intended for space needed for stormwater pond, infiltration pond, and excavation related to the project. Then we shift down to the south for area 2, space needed for on-site storage of fill material. And the applicant can speak greatly to the amount of soil that needs to be moved and shifted for this project and how to account for that. And so that's part of the idea for area 2 here. And then moving north to area 3, space needed for construction logistics. And again, they based on the engineering recommendation, there's a desire to move that access road as far west from the property line as possible. So focusing back on area 1, again, the closest to the project facilities itself, the applicant is proposing a temporary 10-foot wall or I'm sorry, 10-foot fence. Again, emphasis on fence, emphasis on temporary, with sound absorbing fabric to mitigate noise and visual impacts during the construction process. So the applicant is proposing that all the trees in this area up to the, would be removed as based on the plans submitted to you tonight. And then they would put this temporary fence in during the construction process. And then after, as the process is being wrapped up, or the project's being wrapped up, then they would implement the landscaping plan that again was submitted with your plans tonight. So again, this temporary fence is to serve as a buffer and noise mitigation during the project itself. Area 2, again, shifting to the south. Again, a temporary condition, a 15-foot berm. That berm would be, the applicant indicated during the CDRB meeting earlier this evening, would be about 100 feet wide. So the slope would be somewhat gradual to get to that 15 feet. But they believe that that would provide, again, visual and sound mitigation during the construction process, while also working to store a good amount of the soils that need to be moved during that process, during the project, sorry. And then again, once the project is wrapping up, they would implement the landscaping plan that has been proposed for this area that was submitted with your plans tonight.
So that dirt would be completely removed then?
Correct. It would be a temporary condition, temporary in the fact of 3 to 4 years. And the applicant can speak more to that process. The final area, area 3, and this is where the trees are the densest. And so again, staff had along all residential property lines recommended that 50-foot setback. There, the applicant is asking to be considered for a 30-foot setback with a couple of a 30-foot setback, meaning that all those trees would be preserved, kind of a no-touch zone. And then they're proposing to augment that with an additional 40 trees, and then also having the option to extend that temporary fence along area 1 for additional mitigation. The CDRB, they reviewed these same elements. Where they ultimately landed in their recommendation is they recommended approval of the treatments for area 1 and area 2 as the applicant proposed. Again, that would implement the landscaping plan as proposed. So all trees within that 50-foot setback that staff had recommended would be removed as based on the tree removal plan submitted. The temporary fence, temporary berm would be implemented, and then after conditions would be based on the landscaping plan. Where the CDRB differed, with the applicant's suggestion, is they recommended to maintain this 50-foot kind of no-touch zone in area 3.
Yes, sir.
So that's similar kind of feedback that we're looking for the Planning Commission to give tonight, based on what the applicant is proposing versus what originally was proposed, and then staff's recommendations. So that's the kind of really the pinch point of, we believe, the review of the project. So we want to hear from the Planning Commission on that tonight. My last slide here is just outlining the neighborhood outreach that we did. So we notified there's 271 property owners within 500 feet of the site. They received each a survey and a public hearing notice. We received 2 responses, and the concerns really focused on the impacts of the construction process itself, many of the issues that we discussed here. The full letters from the neighbors are included with your staff report. I did fail to mention this in the CDRB meeting, and I want to make sure to do this now, is that St. Paul Regional Water held its own neighborhood meeting, and they had both 2 meetings, both an in-person meeting and a virtual meeting that I know the Planning Commission had received an invite to as well. So there's been additional outreach than what the city typically does with this project, and just making sure the Planning Commission has the full understanding of neighborhood outreach. So with that, staff is recommending approval of the project per the conditions laid out in the conditional use permit resolution. And again, looking for feedback on specifically, obviously on the project as a whole and anything that the commission wants to discuss, but looking for specific feedback on the treatments that the applicant is proposing along the residential property lines.
Mike, on the going from the 50 to the 30, do you have any idea how many more trees that's going to save by keeping the 50 comparison to going to the 30?
Chair and Commission, no, I do not have that count ready at this time to know that.
Is that where that Fenton Street is? Fenton, is that how you pronounce it? Fenton Street?
Chair and Commission, yeah, Fenton runs east-west into the corner of the site. They can pull up the site.
Because I'm looking at the tree. I'm looking at the tree thing here on that shows the trees.
Chair and Commission, if you so directed, the applicant might have a better handle immediately on that specific question.
Okay. Did anybody have any more questions for the staff? Yeah,
I do. I'm just wondering, why are they, to begin with, why are they shooting for 30 instead of complying with the 50?
Chair and Commission,
we'll have to ask them.
Yeah, Chair and Commission, I think that's a good question for the applicant to address directly.
Okay.
Is the applicant available then to speak?
We are. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yes.
Excellent. I lost
You bleeped out now. You froze.
my phone audio moments ago. And yeah, so
You're freezing.
Great questions on the order of dozens of trees preserved, maybe 1 to 2 dozen trees with that additional 20 feet.
You keep on freezing.
That's just a ballpark guess based.
Chair and Commission, I don't know if there's someone from Jacobs Engineering or someone that could fill in for William here until maybe he could recall in.
Sorry, go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, hi, good evening. This is, I'm Patrick Shea. I'm the General Manager of St. Paul Regional Water Services. As well as indicated, it's about estimated 2 dozen trees that really would be affected by the extra buffer. You know, we're the plan as proposed does, the buffer that we propose does meet the development code as we understand it. So the extra 20 feet was a staff desire that was considered and discussed and then approved by the community design team. That's my understanding. I don't know if Michael can clarify that, but that was my understanding.
Right, they went from the 50 to the 30. Is that what I understood too, Mike?
Yeah, correct. And Chair and Commission, you know, with how staff landed on the 50 feet to begin with is, you know, a recognition of existing conditions, the impact of the project, and, you know, both during and after conditions, and the length of time to replicate existing growth of the trees that are there. So we felt like a 50-foot, you know, instead of essentially, you know, the applicant was starting with almost 0 foot. Setback's not really the right word, but, you know, clearing up to trees almost right up to the property line. So we thought 50 feet was fair to maintain some semblance of the vegetation screening and buffer that exists today. The applicant feels that 30 feet is more appropriate or in that area for things they need to accomplish. And that's where you can ask them more questions on that rationale. Again, so staff started at 50. We have these new iterations that were presented today, and I outlined where the CDRB landed, and that's what we're considering moving forward.
Okay, Patrick, what is the reasoning to have to go all the way up to the, you know, originally they were going to take out all the trees? What is going on with the construction project there that how the trees have to be moved to drive around? What is the reasoning of that?
Yeah, so there's two. There's really the construction staging. You know, part of the process is to essentially build a new facility while continuing to operate the current facility. So what we're hoping we're able to do is, one, minimize traffic disruptions by creating an area where people can stage and come into the facility. And the other is just general changes to the site with some new stormwater BMPs that will be installed and those sort of things. So trying to keep minimize and hopefully prevent any backup traffic onto Roselawn as a result of this work. So, you know, for example, as the round tanks that you can see on the screen, it's going to be a lot of concrete as part of that. So you're going to have a row of concrete trucks coming into the site, and really just want to make sure that traffic and noise does not spill out into that portion of Maplewood as part of the project. And I think we have some of Jacobs Engineering, who is our partner in this project, that can maybe spell it out a little bit better detail.
Or Will, do you want to?
Have my back
Will,
now.
Yeah, do you want to just take us through each area, maybe step by step? I think that might be helpful for everyone to just understand for each area why we came back with the best that we felt like we could do and still build the project.
Yeah, absolutely. And I apologize for my audio loss before. Naturally, it happens on important meetings. Audio one is the perfect or area one's the perfect place to start without using pretty much up to the fence line and removing all the trees in this area. The project simply just isn't buildable. We have to keep the existing treatment facility up and running. Obviously, we're serving almost 500,000 people with water every day, and just working on the existing footprint with the grading and such that's necessary. In area one, it's really just not possible to build the new facilities without removing all those trees. And so that's why in that area, we've proposed that temporary sound wall in recognition of the fact that, there will be impacts to neighboring properties getting that close to the line during construction. We think that's the best way to address it. Obviously, as we noted, we'll come back and landscape it in an attractive way at the end. But at the end of the day, to build a facility that's going to serve close to 500,000 people for decades to come, we just have to have that area one space. In area two, the considerations, there were a handful here. One, so you're looking at a 15-foot tall berm. That's got a handful of advantages. First, there's something on the order of about 30 trees in that area right now. It's not a super densely vegetated area. And so a berm obviously gives you a solid visual block, an audible block. So we think in the long run, the berm will actually, provide a better visual and audio barrier for neighbors. In addition to that, it allows us to store about 18,000 cubic yards of soil on the site, which if you had to track, or if you had to send that material offsite, say 15 miles away is what we ran the calculations on, and then bring it back at the end because it's needed for final grading, it equate to something on the order of like the CO2 emissions from the trucking are equivalent to deforesting about 260 acres of land. So we're removing about 30 trees to save that tremendous volume of CO2 emissions from trucking. So that plays in. Also, keeping the soil on site saves millions of dollars, which for a public utility, and all the savings get passed on to your citizens and the 450,000 other people who drink our water. So that's why we think a berm's, it's not probably the most elegant solution that's ever been designed, but we think it'll do a great job for the neighbors. It saves a lot of money for the public. It saves a lot of environmental impact. And it just seems like from every angle we look at it, it's the best solution. And then jumping to area 3, that area, building the construction roadway enables us to be sure, as Pat mentioned, that we won't have negative traffic impacts on Roselawn Avenue. We won't have backups of trucks and such in that area, or on Roselawn because of that area. And it should, it certainly operating in that area will have some impacts to the, I think it's 11 houses that run along there. But in the long run, it'll be a big positive for anyone who drives on Roselawn. And in addition, having that separate entrance that comes along that north-south backside of Beaumont allows us to keep the construction site completely separate from our operating facility, which is a huge security advantage for everybody who drinks our water, to be able to keep vehicles that are working on construction just in the areas that they need to be for construction, and not driving around the rest of the facility. So those are two huge advantages that we do recognize. There's some negatives to the neighbors, the 11 or so properties there, but huge benefits to folks who drive on Roselawn, and to the customers who are drinking our water. And so that's why we thought, with a 50-foot buffer, it was going to be really hard for us to realize those benefits. With a 30-foot buffer, and in addition to the trees, we would have a wrap on the 7-foot tall chain link fence that's there as well. So we'd have a covering on the fence, 30 feet of trees, and then we'd get into our construction zone. Does that answer the question, give an okay overview for the committee here?
Somehow, I mean, the current condition of that, can I go ahead?
Go ahead, Alan.
Yeah, the current condition for that place, I mean, as it is now, with those 11 houses you are talking about, they are on a good footprint, you know what I'm saying? So there is no problem. So if you still keep it like that and have the 50 feet buffer that we are talking about instead of 30, I think you should just keep it in sync, So I don't know why you want to go to 30 foot instead of 54, because it doesn't add anything to anything, but keep the artistic area. I mean, the way the area looks. Roselawn is, it's not a heavy traffic, street around that side. I don't think so. So, it's a very quiet place all the way to Rice Street.
Sure, absolutely. I would note too that the thing that had pushed us to a 30-foot buffer initially was more so construction phase impacts. In the long run, accommodating 50-foot, I don't think is really a challenge for us, or would be a concern. Having the additional 20 feet during the construction phase would be a big plus for us. And certainly we'll do everything we can to make sure we don't take any more space than we need. But just to be clear, 50 feet in the long term, I think is very achievable for us.
Yeah, I think so too. I think so.
And
I really appreciate the fact that because my question will have been, what were you going to do with the excavated soil? But I'm glad that you have a very good use for it, for that purpose over there, which is very, very nice, And it's even cheaper. It's even more environmentally friendly for you to keep it over there and use it as a band. Yeah,
it's not going to stay as a berm, though. Do you understand that, Alan?
Yeah, at the end of the day. Well, it depends if they want to remove it after the construction. They
will. They said that they had to use that for fill. That was just a holding spot till they were done, and then that's going to be regraded as is to bring the height to normal grade. So that won't stay, right? Am I correct on that? Applicants?
That is correct.
Exactly. Yep. Right. And that's how we reap those environmental benefits, right? We're just storing it right on site. And when there's new demolition that requires that fill material, the fill material is right there and can be placed. And
there's no benefit to keeping any type of room there for any type of future sound, because there's not a lot of houses on that direction, or there is, or
in the long term, I would say there's not much benefit to the berm. One, we'd need the soil to bring the site to grade, and so we'd end up having to truck in more soil. But overall, our day-to-day operations on the site are not really noisy and not an irritant from anything that we hear from neighbors. And so in the long run, there's really not a whole lot of need for that kind of visual break. It's mostly advantageous during construction, which is when it would be there.
Okay. Makes sense.
Okay. As long as you use the excavated soil on site, that's fine.
Now, Michael, you had said that the or whatever it is, they had come up with an agreement for that area to come down to 30 feet. Is that something that sounds okay, or is that I mean, you're losing 24 trees approximately, or is that something something we shouldn't consider?
Chair and
I don't-
Commission. So there has been, so staff started at the 50. What the regional water just walked you through is what they've counter proposed. The CDRB agreed essentially with the counter on areas 1 and 2, but wanted to maintain the 50-foot setback in area 3. So they made that recommendation independent of staff and of you, and that will be forwarded to the city council, as your recommendation will be as well. And so what always occurs after CDRB and planning commission meetings is the staff will kind of take stock of what happened and talk to the applicant. And there's times where the staff maintains its own recommendation, or we incorporate the recommendations we've heard from the board and commission. So we'll have to see how that plays out at this point, but we want to hear independently of what the planning commission would like to see.
Okay. Well, Patrick, you had mentioned that I'm a concrete contractor, and so I know when you're pumping in that they like to have all the trucks and everything lined up there, but they can schedule those too and have appropriate scheduling to delay those too, so there's not a big backup of trucks. Is that one of the big main reasons you think that the area 3 there is going to be for staging for the trucks to come in, or what were you thinking there?
Yeah, Roger, do you want to kind of talk about kind of staging as it relates to kind of just general truck traffic? Jacobs is our partner, our design build engineer on this project.
Yeah, let me share my the construction plan. So as you noted, obviously one of the requirements of this was a construction management plan. Absolutely, that's well underway and being developed. You can say this is kind of an interim phase of the project. This is what we're calling phase 2. And here's where that road would be. Staff had asked for it to be as far west as possible, and that's where we have it pretty much already. This is a reservoir called a low service reservoir. We can't drive on top of that. We won't, right? So that is essentially nearly as far west as it can go at this point. And this is going to be construction parking, as well as trucks can pull in here before they get to that security gate. So rather than having trucks back up here, it wouldn't necessarily be just concrete trucks, right? We are going to have some earth moving that does have to go off site, as well as a lot of craft labor, right? You consider the number of craft labor that will be on site during peak construction. We have a significant space for parking for craft on this site as well. That is going to be important for making sure that we mitigate, having to bust them in from off site, which would be expensive.
Yeah, I think I would just add to that. And it's not the most glamorous use of 20 feet of space, but it is really valuable in that you can't build a project without people, and you need a place for those people to be able to, access the site. And so the difference between 50 feet and 30 feet is largely this parking area. And over the course of 4.5 years of project work, if you don't have a place to park people on the site, you've got to bus, hundreds of craft laborers from an alternative site that presumably you're renting, and pay those people for their time and such. And so a bit of what it boils down to is ultimately we're working with the public's money, and, for the sake of those 20 feet, we can get all the parking that we think we need on site and save. It'd be on the order of millions of dollars over the course of the project. And so we recognize that comes at the cost of a dozen to 200 trees or so. And it means that neighbors will have, 20 feet fewer of screening, but the public benefit versus the additional 20 feet of screening lost to there's probably 6 homes or so along there. It just seems like the most responsible use of public funds to us and the best for the overall public.
You can't park where that Y is down there further to the south, or that area there, or you can't park down in front of the tanks down here way to the very south, right? Yep, yeah, over there to the right.
Yeah, that is correct. This will be a future stormwater pond and another building. That is correct.
And then down here, below that pink box, that area
correct.
there, what's
this is existing clarifiers 3, 4, and 5. This is existing part of the process. So you'd be building, this will be parking on top of concrete tanks that actually treat the water at this point.
Oh, okay. We could make a ramp up to them and then park on the top.
That's right. Park on that berm that's going to go back here.
Right.
They're underground. They're just 70 plus years old.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Since they got buried 70 years ago. So, and gas and water is not a great thing if you got a leaky car.
No. So would you be okay then not having the 50 and going to the 30 there? And would that be a significant amount of still be enough parking area there? Or is that, I mean, I know because
yes, we can make 30 feet work.
Oh, we can. And if we, per the recommendation from the other board, 50 feet just gets super, super expensive. And so that's what we 30.
Yeah, well, I can see where you are coming from when in terms of cost estimation for the 50 feet or for the difference of 20 feet. But we're talking about not the real estate over there, not only the real estate, but the trees over there. I mean, I can understand if the place is going to be used temporarily for the purpose you are, outlining, but that's not the case, So it's just fair enough to be able to work with the 50 feet. I will go with the recommendation of the CRP.
Okay, well, that's your opinion, yeah.
Yep.
I don't know what the other guys are feeling. Cheryl and Lou, what are your thoughts on that? Do you have any interjections on that to stick with the 50 or go down to the 30 or?
I'm good with the 30. It's just seeing the big construction industry things. You do need that on-site parking and things like that too. So I'm good with the 30.
Cheryl?
I'm good with the 30 as well. One thing I did just want to go back to though is it wasn't clear to me what other options were available. I know that it was spoken to, right, just because of operating the site at the same time as doing construction and from a safety standpoint. But if the applicant could speak a little more to what other options existed on the site that were considered.
Specifically for the area that's showing on the screen right now, is that your question?
Parking? I think she's asking for parking.
Yeah, for like the construction road and the staging that you're referencing here.
Sure, absolutely. There's really, from a construction road standpoint, there's really not a viable alternative in our opinion. The entrance to the main facility is via Sylvan, which is just to the west, but that's not built for this level of traffic, and we'd certainly be risking backing up vehicles onto Roselawn Avenue and impacting traffic flow, which is not ideal. And also we would be then integrating construction traffic with day-to-day operations of the plant. And once folks are inside that gated perimeter, they could kind of drive wherever, which is a security risk. So we feel like, given the critical nature of the facility and the fact that, it's arguably the most important public health asset for 500,000 people, that the benefit of that extra security and less impact on Roselawn Avenue is a clear pointer to needing the construction roadway. Similarly, because that allows us to fence in the construction area, that's where we'd need people to be able to park as well to access the site. And there's just really not our objective here to be fiscally responsible has been kind of to try to figure out the most efficient way we can use every square inch of the site without making impacts on neighbors overwhelming. And so we're using every other area of the site for precasting concrete panels, storing pipes, putting pipes in the ground, things like that. It's really, if we didn't have this area 3 for the construction roadway or for parking, there's really not a viable alternative to either. We've been over it. I can't tell you how many hundreds of times trying to make sure that, and that's why we weren't able to just immediately approve Maplewood's recommendation, because we've spent thousands of hours probably between a whole group of engineers trying to figure out exactly the best use of this site we could come up with.
Thank you for the additional background.
Absolutely.
There was a question from one of the neighbors that talked about the timeline and things like that. It's all the stages are going to happen within this 5 years. There's no anticipated pauses, or, once construction gets going, everything's going at once. Is that the idea?
That's correct. It would be one continuous effort throughout the project. There are a handful of, ultimately, if we pause, we'd just be shifting to a later date. We can't reduce the scope. But during construction, we're losing some of our capacity to treat water. So if you extend that, the longer that goes, the more risk there is. We're also in a really bizarre economic environment where if you extend the project, trying to cost that out becomes really, really challenging. It's already hard enough trying to cost out 4 or 5 years in the future. And then another downside is if you pause, your project personnel are inherently drawn to other jobs. And when you lose that kind of focus, quality on construction can suffer. So that's why we think one continuous effort is necessary. I will note, though, that from a disruption to the neighborhood standpoint, you're kind of going to have 2 peaks in a valley. The beginning during demolition and excavation will probably be pretty disruptive to the neighborhood. The middle part where we're actually constructing the facilities, that'll be the bulk of the project, 3.5 years in there in the middle. That shouldn't be tremendously disruptive. That's pouring concrete. There'll be certainly some traffic and there'll be cranes on site, but it shouldn't be the kind of noisy work that the excavation and demolition is. And then at the end, we'll come back for stage 2 of demolition and regrading, and it'll get, a little noisier again. So yes, one continuous effort, but not an equally disruptive effort throughout. It'll peak at the beginning and at the end, but the middle 3/4 of the project shouldn't be tremendously disruptive to neighbors. They'll still feel a pause in the middle.
Are these slides and this information available to the general public if the neighbors did want to research it some more, did want more information?
Yeah, that's a great question. So Mike touched on the fact that we've separately communicated with neighbors. We've sent 2 letters out to a larger group even than Maplewoods. We sent them to all the properties you can see there. It's about 318 properties. The second letter we sent out had almost all the information you've seen tonight, graphics of what's getting demolished, what's getting built, in a 4-page attachment to it. I've given to all the folks in the red areas who are most likely to be impacted by the project. They've had my phone number and email address for months. And I've had one question from somebody who asked if we could put up some screening on the fence. That's already part of our plan. So there doesn't seem to be a tremendous amount of concern from the neighborhood. We've had 2 open houses. We had one neighbor attend the in-person open house. He asked if we were going to be driving on neighborhood streets, and we won't be doing that. So not a real huge concern. And then we did not have anybody show at the virtual open house. We still recorded the presentation. It's posted on a website specifically for neighbors that was shared in those letters. The presentation's been viewed 8 times now. So some neighbors have accessed it and looked at it. But we feel like we recognize we're operating in a residential area and these are people's homes. We've really tried to hammer home communication with neighbors to be responsible. And it seems like there are legitimate concerns that exist, but overall, in multiple communications with 300 plus folks, we've had 4 people express concerns, and most of those we feel like we've already resolved with the plans for the site.
Yeah. No, I appreciate it. As a citizen of Maplewood, we are, customers of SPRWS too. So it's I think it's beneficial for us, even though we're not directly in the neighborhood, to know about what's happening here. Just in anticipation of, it's inflation, right? That things are going to get pricey and things like that. These projects cost a good amount of money. It's got to come from someone. So,
Absolutely.
I don't know where the page numbers or the illustration numbers are on this, but I don't know if you can see which one I'm looking at. But would you be able to pull this one up and show where the difference is between the 50 and the 30 is on that?
Roger, are you able to do that? I had to work from a phone for my audio, so I can kind of see. I think it's the tree removal plan.
It is.
I believe you can see it now. Is that correct?
No,
we now. Okay.
We're still seeing the slides.
Neighborhood communication slide.
Okay. I believe you should be able to see it now.
Yep.
All right. So this is that drawing. Is that correct?
Correct. Yep. Now, what is the difference between the 50 and the 30 and that on that one?
Yep. Let me just quick calibrate my scale. But it is. Let's see. All right, so you can see there are some trees along that edge that we are intending to save, but it is primarily just a handful of these trees here. But let me draw that. So here's. That's 30 feet. And let me draw 50 feet here for you, and you can see what that would look like.
So it looks like this slides down to the south a bit as well, but the density is pretty similar throughout. It looks like you're looking at something, but would you say, Roger, looking at it full size, something on the order of a dozen trees or so is the difference between 30 and 50 feet?
Maybe even less.
Yeah, it's not a significant number right here at all. As you go a little bit further south, just so everyone knows, I can show you, there are more. So just for full disclosure, just so no one's looks at the next drawing and feel like we're hiding anything, right? So it is a little, there is a pocket of trees right in here that would fall. And that's really your greatest, where it would be a little bit more significant.
So you're adding maybe additional another 25 trees or.
Yeah, but exactly. It's on that one. Yep. It's not a huge number.
Yep.
But the difference, what we are talking about is not the tree or not the trees. It's the distance we're talking about. It's not the number of trees. We're talking about the difference number, the numerical value over here between 30 and 50. It's what we are talking about. Not the
the difference is between the difference in that 20 feet is going to be that it's going to be back to normal. It's not permanent. It's just that the trees need to be removed during the construction, and then it's going to go back to whatever the distance is before, but nothing there,
Correct. And as you know, there is an existing road right here on the site, and that's why there is not, that many more additional trees that would come in.
So what's wrong with the existing road?
It's the existing roads used occasionally for access to a water reservoir up there for pickup trucks. A handful of times a year. We're talking about something that'll be used for concrete trucks that are significantly heavier on a daily basis. They're like orders of magnitude different as far as what you need for the road construction. So the existing road. Also, the new road will be further from property lines. The existing road is just a handful of feet off property lines. So even if we could use that road, you guys wouldn't want us to. What we're proposing is going to be much less impactful.
And that's going to be a paved road too, right? Or part of it's paved. So the dirt, is that kind of what the request was too?
Roger, you have a slide on that. Our plan right now is for that road to be gravel for a couple reasons. There are some hills there. We felt like gravel is a little better from a safety standpoint for traction in icy weather. And so that was one factor that goes in. It's gravel significantly cheaper as well. And we felt like in either instance, you know, if you have a paved road and you're hauling soils, you need to be diligent in sweeping that, or you could have dust problems. If you have a gravel road, you need to be diligent in watering it. The key is proactive maintenance of whatever kind of road you have. So we weren't viewing one as inherently superior to the other. We did talk about, because in the engineering report there was a recommendation to pave that. We think if Maplewood sees a significant difference between the two options, that we could consider paving the last 50 feet or so before you go onto Roselawn to avoid tracking of any soil. But in any case, we'll have wheel washes and we'll have, materials there to make sure that we get dirt off of tires. We've also booked for daily street sweeping of Roselawn with our subcontract to make sure that we're not messing with traffic out there. Does that answer your question? Okay.
Yes. I read that in the report about being paved part of it, but yeah, I understand the gravel's definitely significantly cheaper, and also you can use the gravel for their use to haul it out than you are having to haul blacktop away. It would be nice if there were a few feet of it blacktop on the very end, just to help catch some of the dirt before it does get under Roselawn, but it's not significant if you're going to be sweeping too. So
sure, absolutely.
There's nothing that you can do about the length, because it just takes time to do the project. It's just, labor intense and that, right? That's just the time schedule, right?
Correct. If we could shorten it, we would, because it'd get cheaper for us. So it's as short as it can get right now.
Anybody else have any other questions? Let's open it to the public then. Is there anybody there on the public that had any questions, Michael?
Chair and commission, does not appear that we have any callers. So I would recommend you just open the public hearing generally and allow for anyone to speak. But again, we don't have any callers into the meeting right now.
Okay, well, it's open to the public now. If anybody would like to call and chime in or anything, we'll give a couple minutes to see if anybody's wanting to have any questions or concerns. What was the newest project that we had just given approval to? What was that we not too long ago? What were they doing? Remember that?
At the water facility?
Yeah.
We built a new sludge storage tank in 2018 that maybe you're thinking of. Does that sound like the right timeline?
Right. Yeah.
Yep.
That's not going to be, that's still going to stay there, or does that have to be redone too?
It's still shiny and beautiful, and it's staying in the same spot. So it's just
okay. Wasn't a waste of money then?
It was not. No, we had this well in mind when we built that. So
still nothing, Michael?
Correct. No, we do not have any callers in.
Okay, I will give it one last call for the public hearing. Seeing none, public hearing is closed. Does anybody else have any other additional questions or? Well, I like to drink water, so I don't have a problem. The only concern is the between Alan wanting 50 and the rest of us okay with 30. So,
well, that shouldn't be a concern. Well, actually, the fact is that there is an existing road over there that they said that cannot carry the concrete trucks and all that stuff. That is a matter of scheduling. You know, if they can.
No. They're talking about the construction. It's like a bike trail comparison to a road. That's how the difference is.
Wait, they have a road there now.
But it's a very light road. It's made for utility, like little vehicles. You know, like
can that car. Can they expand that?
Well, they don't want it because the city doesn't want them to be that close to the property. That was the other concern.
Chair, Alan, are you talking about the road along the actual property line or the one that's further west?
Along the property line.
Okay.
Yeah, along the property line. It's a road. It's a motor vehicle road.
But it's not designed for the heavy construction.
Yeah, but it can be designed for the construction.
Yeah, but you have to tear it out and redo it. Then that would cost hundreds of thousands of dollars to do that.
Well, this one is a new one. Now they're going to use gravel and just pave only part of it. So why
they don't even know if they're going to pave it. They don't even know if they're going to pave it. That was just a request.
Yeah, I would think that they can modify the existing road to do the same thing.
Nope. I disagree. William, do you want to chime in on that at all? Or
I would agree with you in what you've said, Mr. Arbuckle, in that first you would have to tear out the existing road. That's also a gravel road. And if you tried to drive trucks of this weight on it, it would just crumble. It's more like a bike path. And then secondly, so the cost would be similar, impact similar, but that existing road is just a few feet off the property line. So what we're giving you is identical, or it's better for construction, but also much better for the neighbors in that it gives an extra probably 40, 50, maybe 60 feet between their property line and the roadway than what currently exists. Mm-hmm. But it should be better in really every aspect, this new roadway we're proposing.
Right, I agree. Did that answer your questions, Alan, or not?
I'm thinking.
Okay, Lou, did you have something?
No, I think I got it. Just looking at the plans, so.
Okay, you thought about it. Shall we move on?
Yes, let's move on.
Okay. I think we need to initially make a motion then to recommend that we go down to the 30 feet then, correct?
Chair and Commission, if I could interject. So there's a couple things at play. The 30 feet, is my understanding, would be in that area 3, but then you would have to specify areas 1 and 2 if you're good with what the applicant has proposed tonight at the meeting versus what was proposed originally versus staff's recommendation. So you need to kind of account for the 3 areas.
3, I'm okay with the 30, we all are, but area 1 and 2, those are all still designated as 50 feet, or was there?
Yeah.
Well, no, Chair and Commission. So that's staff's recommendation, but that's not what the applicant is proposing in areas 1 or 2. They're proposing those temporary mitigation, the temporary fence, temporary berm, and then when the project is being wrapped up, they would return it to what is proposed in their original landscaping plan, which, the 30, 50 at that point does not mean anything in areas 1 or 2. And then they would follow the landscape plan as originally submitted.
Discuss much about that then, did we, about the tree removals on those?
Maybe as a refresher, area 1 was the area where we said that it's just not, the project's not buildable with the 50-foot tree buffer, and that's why we'd proposed that fence with the screening on it in sound mitigating cloth. And the project's just not buildable with a 50-foot buffer there during construction. And then area 2 was the area where we talked about the berm that saves you, roughly the carbon emissions of 260 acres of forest deforestation, and gives you the best visual and audible screening that you could have. So I think we did we did touch on those two areas briefly today, if that's ringing a bell.
And those cannot be, you can't run across the board and say 30 feet for everything, because there's no way you can do 30 feet on those areas because of the closeness of the building, the towers there, right?
Correct. Yeah. In area 1, we couldn't make it work with 30 feet or 50 feet or anything other than what's proposed right now. In area 2, as we discussed, you could draw a 30-foot line there, but then you're trucking all that stuff off site and spending millions of dollars and burning tens of thousands of gallons of diesel fuel for the sake of saving 10 trees or so. And so that's why we think that the two measures we've proposed in that area are superior to creating a specific boundary.
Because that area there is.
Mr. Chair, when you lean forward, we can't hear you.
Oh, there's a significant amount of trees along that area 3, I think. Isn't there? But they're all right on the property there.
Yeah.
Roger, would you mind pulling back up the delineation of areas 1, 2, and 3 that we had in the graphic, just to make sure we're not, we know exactly what areas we're talking about?
Sure.
White shirt.
I've lost weight. I'm putting my old shirt.
So here's areas 1, 2, and 3, and area 2 being down here. That is correct. And
does that help with your question, Mr. Arbuckle? Sorry, I'm not sure exactly which area you were getting at.
Yeah, it was just the area along area 2 there on my tree removal thing here. There's all the trees are right on the property line. They're pretty much within the first 15, 20 feet there. So, I mean, it's not like if you're going to put the dirt there, then you can't step back because of the clarifiers underneath the ground there, right?
Exactly. Yep. You couldn't surcharge those existing structures without running a lot of risk to the water treatment facility.
Right. So you're asking for your proposal is the berm with removal of all trees right to the property line.
Correct. Yes.
Mr. Chair, then coming back at project completion of implementing the landscaping plan as presented.
Also correct.
Which is several trees in place. What's the I didn't get that far in here. What is the height of most of the trees?
The final landscaping plan would be coming back. We'd be planting, I think it's 3 to 5 year old trees. They'd be 6 to 8 feet tall, about 2 inches in diameter. We'd be planting all along all of the property lines that we're discussing here to provide visual screening. And then behind that would be sitting plantings of kind of native prairie grasses. So we think at the end, after construction, the site should be considerably more attractive than it is to neighbors today. It's just the pinch point of construction.
Now, how much cost difference is there to go with 4-inch trees than comparison to 2? Is they double the price or even more?
Eric, if you're on with Jacobs, maybe you'd be most likely to know the answer to that.
You know, we haven't quantified. I do know when we talked to I asked that question as well of the arborist and landscape architect, and they said there is a very significant bump up in price, as you can imagine, because those trees are just that much older, right? So I don't have an exact number to quote for you, but it was very significant because I asked that exact same question, right? as well as, and availability is the other big thing, right? Like, what we're proposing now, the landscape architect said today, is something we're gonna have to work with local landscape companies, because we're gonna wipe out a good number of them for their tree holdings. We have a huge number of trees that we're planting back on site. And so trying to get that many of mature trees, he didn't even necessarily think would be feasible.
I'll note, at least if it's helpful at all, my gut feel is I would expect that you would see an exponential curve in the cost of, like, if you're doubling the size of your trees, I don't think you would double your cost. I think you'd be likely to quadruple it, because you imagine the logistics of getting a 6 to 8 foot tall tree to the site versus the logistics of getting, a 12 to 16 foot tall tree to the site are tremendous. It's more than double as hard to do that.
And the other issue is also warranty, Will. That was the other thing when I asked that question, is that the landscape architect said you can't necessarily get a warranty, right? So a lot of these trees will come right with a 1-year warranty on them, that the landscaper is required to come and put them back if they die, and a certain number don't make it, right? Yep. You couldn't get that same kind of agreement for that mature of a tree. So there'd be even, significant risk to the city to planting, to even find, if they found them, the logistics of planting them, and then the viability of them they're much harder to keep alive, and they wouldn't come with that guarantee.
Makes sense. Well, what you could do is you could plant the trees on the berm as soon as you get it done, and then they'll be 4 years older. Just move them around.
There you go.
We'll be looking for a lot of dirt, though. We do in area 3 with the 30-foot zone, though. To your point, we would be going ahead and infilling with the trees that we'd be planting per the landscaping plan. So those would get the extra 4 years of maturation during construction and that 30-foot buffer. So
you'll actually be putting in a lot denser trees along that property than that exist now, according to I see the plan here now. So actually there'll be more trees.
That is correct.
Yeah. Okay.
So with your revised plan right now, with the 30 feet added to area 3, you guys are good there?
Yeah, I think we feel good about that.
But then area, was it 1 all the way at the bottom? Or is it
1 in the
2?
middle?
True.
Yeah. So area 2, you would need, you would go all the way to the property line, and then area 1
again all the way to the property line, during construction with the temporary fencing, and then at the end we would be coming back and planting trees along the property lines.
Yeah.
So the bottom line here is that areas 1 and 2 will be used during the construction and then returned back to their original something, right? Unlike area 3.
Much.
Yeah, unlike area 3. Only area 3 that will not be returned back because of the difference of 20 feet.
They'll be planting trees there too, right?
That's what we're talking about.
Yeah, you'll be replanting some trees there too, right?
Correct.
No, I don't think so. Because the trees now is at the other side of the existing road. Okay, the new road will be on to the other side of the existing road, so there will be no trees.
Well, the road's not going to stay. The road is
going to stay. It's not temporary. That is why it's different from the existing road. It's going to be.
Road's just a temporary road, correct?
I think the road would be used temporarily. We may. I don't know that it's been decided yet whether the gravel would stay there or not. I mean, there could be some future utility to having it there, but we don't have any plans to use it in the long run. But to the point I think we're getting at, we would have a 30-foot buffer of tree planting. At the end, we could add to that if needed. Beyond that 30-foot buffer of trees, we would have plantings of native prairie grass, and then potentially, the unutilized construction road would remain there just because we don't get any real value from pulling it out. But we would have, I think in the long run, we would have a unutilized road that sat more than 50 feet off of the property line, that we'd have pretty dense tree coverage of that area. So it would differ from existing in that the existing is more or less, you're looking west at a forest that's in that area, and it would be a little narrower. That does provide security benefits to us, though. Having a forested area on the site is really not ideal for a critical public facility where, you really don't know who could be camping out in there and such. So there are some benefits to getting rid of some of the forested area as well.
Right. Yeah. You never know what terrorist attacks are coming in the future.
So in the big bound package with the landscape, the kind of the overall planned plantings, it seems like the road, that little dinky road, is still in there. But from what I understand, you're saying is that could just go away altogether.
No.
The little dinky road, yeah, we wouldn't utilize it. I think we would be planting trees in that area, and during construction, there'd probably be some parking in that area. Mm-hmm. That won't be a barrier to like future tree planting or prairie grass or such. Mm-hmm. If we were going to keep a road in that area, it would be the construction roadway we'd put in, because it would be much more useful and further from property lines.
Okay. Any other questions? So I guess I'm okay with the areas. If we make area 3, bring it down to the 30, and then area 1 and 2, I guess we'd have to go to the 0, as long as the understanding is that everything's going to be replanted on your drawings here of the replanting, right? But you do not have any designated planting in area 3, right? That's because you're just taking out and then and no true replacement there, right?
We do have plantings.
Oh, you do?
Yep, those are the ones that I'm saying that we would actually go ahead and at the start in that 30-foot buffer infill with the final landscaping tree planting. So it's adding about 40 trees to that area 3, in addition to the ones we'd be saving in the 30-foot buffer.
Okay.
Chair and Commission, if I might, I'm assuming there's going to be an anticipated motion here, and what I'm hearing, and the Commission makes their own motion, so take it with a grain of salt. But what I'm hearing is that you would want areas 1 and 2 to be approved based on the applicant's plans for tree removal and then landscaping plans, but adding in the screening mitigation that they proposed tonight. And then area 3, you're okay with creating or requiring a 30-foot buffer and then maintaining the landscaping plan or the additional 40 trees that Will has been talking about. So I think that's correct. Generally what I'm hearing. So if that helps,
yes, exactly.
Motion for the Commission.
Yes, exactly.
I'm happy to take a stab at the motion summarizing.
Go ahead, Cheryl. Go ahead. Perfect.
So motion to approve a resolution for a conditional use permit amendment permitting St. Paul Regional Water Service to construct improvements to its McCarran's water treatment plant at 1900 Rice Street North, with the friendly amendment that the applicant's proposed solution for tree removal be adopted, which includes a 10-foot fence with soundproof fabric installed in area 1, a berm constructed in area 2, and a 30-foot buffer for tree removal in area 3.
Perfect.
Get that all, Michael? Yes? Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
I'll second that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I hear all but one aye. Alan, is yours a nay?
Yeah.
Nay, and your reasoning is because you think they can make that work with the 50, right?
Well, you have duplication of roads over there on area 3. You have 2 roads. Why 2 roads?
Because they're not the same.
Yeah, well, a road is a road. They are not the same. They are not competing with each other. They need a road for construction, make a road for construction, and utilize the other one.
You come over here in my sandbox and I'll show you the difference.
So Chair and Commission, I have recorded a 3-to-1 vote, so the motion would approve. And Mr. Chair, this item will be heard at the City Council at the February 28th council meeting.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, is there any other things that we needed to approve, or is that was the main thing?
That was the one item with this project.
Okay. 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 Well, thank you, Patrick and William, and whoever else there's names I don't see. So
thank you so much.
Yep. Is that the Vadnais Heights station right there, or the water well?
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah, very cool. All right. Have a great night. Thank you very much.
You too. Thank you.
Bye now.
Okay. Any new business, unfinished business, visitors presentations, commissioners presentations, staff presentations? None of those?
Chair and Commission, we do not have anything further for you tonight.
Did the dental office approve? I don't remember if I had asked that before or not on Hazelwood there.
Yeah, the project did approve. Yep, was approved by the council.
Okay. And then the last meeting I missed, did that get approved too yet, or that hasn't gone there?
Last meeting, I'm trying to think of what the projects were. I wasn't at that meeting either.
I wasn't either, so I don't know either.
So it's scooters. Yeah, scooters went.
Oh yeah, yeah, in the corner there, B.
That went to council last night, and that was approved.
Okay. And did the neighbors on the east there okay with that then, or?
Neighbors had some concerns that they were expressed at the Planning Commission and City Council meeting.
Okay. Yeah, because I know they're always concerned about the lights and that they're on their property there, and that's why we have that big wall. So.
Yep.
Okay. Anybody else have anything? Okay, I make a motion, we adjourn. Thank you, everybody. Good meeting.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks everyone.